So the next part of the session will have 4 speakers giving a 10-minute presentation each, followed by a panel discussion. All questions will be held until the panel discussion. So the first speaker is Puja Ahluwalia. Puja is a physiotherapist with a master's in public health promotion. She is very dear to my heart, and she is the national lead for the rehabilitation, the national lead on rehabilitation and optimal health and well-being programming at Realize. So welcome, Puja.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I'm just gonna try and share my screen. Okay, I think that should be right. Thank you again. Like Tammy mentioned, my name is Puja Ahluwalia, and I am the National Lead for Rehabilitation, Optimal Health, and Wellbeing at Realize. Today, I will be speaking to you about the Optimal Health and Wellbeing in HIV opinion paper and some of the work it has sparked. Before I go on, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the Realize office and my home, where I'm speaking to you from today, sits on the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Métis, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I would like to thank Gilead for funding this work, and a huge, huge, huge thank you to Tammy Yates and Bob Leahy for their leadership, and all of the members of the Optimal Health and Wellbeing in HIV Steering Committee who wrote the opinion paper. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the members of the National Community Advisory Group who I am working with to continue to move this work forward. So how did we get here today? Just going to go over a little quick timeline. In April 2018, the Optimal Health and Wellbeing in HIV Steering Committee was formed to develop an opinion paper on well-being in HIV as the conversation was just starting. In November 2019, this opinion paper was completed, and it was organized around 6 key calls to action, which I will discuss later. In August of last year, Realize received, can I adjust the size of my slides? I don't know how, sorry. If anyone has any insight, let me know. So this opinion paper was completed in November 2019, and it was surrounded by the 6 key calls to action. And finally, in October 2020, in August of last year, Realize received funding to develop a year-long national campaign to promote the calls to action outlined in the opinion paper. And then in October of last year, the National Community Advisory Group was formed and had their first meeting building on the momentum of this paper. I do need to acknowledge that similar work was presented previously by a group led by Jeff Lazarus, and it was presented to the European Union. So the grant we received will enable us to build off the Optimal Health and Wellbeing in HIV opinion paper in 3 key ways. Number 1, start a national conversation on optimal health and well-being in HIV among key audiences, including policymakers, healthcare professionals, researchers, the HIV sector, and community members, especially as related to the 6 key calls to action as defined in the paper. Number 2, increase knowledge and awareness of the 90-90-90 goals, including their strengths and shortcomings. I have to acknowledge that the 90-90-90 goals officially expired at the end of 2020. However, UNAIDS has yet to ratify their updated goals. We expect the new iteration of these goals will look similar, but will set even higher targets of 95 for diagnosis, treatment, and achievement of undetectable viral load, as well as setting additional targets. These are going to be further discussed in Bob Leahy's presentation, which follows mine. And finally, number 3, we will work with the National Community Advisory Group to develop key messages related to optimal health and well-being and quality of life for people living with HIV. So what do we consider optimal health and well-being for people living with HIV? Right now, it is an extremely broad, holistic, comprehensive, all-encompassing view of optimal health and well-being, sort of taking into account anything that could be part of it. And this sort of view of Wellbeing are surrounded around the 6 key calls to action the paper created: increasing systematic participation of people living with HIV in all areas, securing a high quality of life for people living with HIV, developing programs and tools to counteract stigma and discrimination, maintaining a focus on the health of older adults living with HIV, integrating access to services across sectors, and eliminating barriers to equal access to people living with HIV. I need to comment on the fact that this work is grounded within the principles of JIPA and MIPA. The National Community Advisory Group consists of community members from across Canada, some of who are at this meeting with us today, representing various key populations, including youth, older adults, and Indigenous people. And we're working together to further define how well-being should be defined for the community of people living with HIV. I also want to acknowledge, and it's something that this past year has really exemplified to me, that well-being is a fluid concept that needs to be continually redefined. So it's sort of like the reason right now it's such a broad description and definition is because it keeps changing for the person. And the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us that the concept of well-being changes as the world changes around us as well. To achieve these project goals, we have taken and are continuing to take the following actions. We had a World AIDS Day campaign leading up to and including World AIDS Day last year. It was on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at the HIV and Rehab accounts for Realize, and it was focused on the 6 key calls to action. I would like to recognize Asma Mohammed, a second-year physiotherapy student at the University of Toronto, who was integral in creating these lovely images and messages that you see on your screen right now. A literature review is currently in progress and hopefully will be finalized before the end of February to see what has been published on the well-being and quality of life for people living with HIV in Canada. Quick reference sheets are also in development on optimal health and well-being and quality of life for people living with HIV, and highlights the relevant calls to action to reach specific target audiences, including policymakers, healthcare professionals, researchers, the HIV sector, and community members. And each of those reference sheets will use terminology and recommendations that are relevant to those groups. A website is being developed as a space to share the opinion paper, the fact sheet, the literature review, and links to relevant information on quality of life for the HIV community. And we are also sharing the calls to action at virtual, and I really hope one day in-person events across Canada. So as a healthcare professional who received minimal education related to HIV in school, I really want to make sure that this message is shared across health disciplines with players who have the power to make change. As mentioned in the session yesterday, for those of you who were there, although messages related to health and well-being may resonate well within the HIV community, we need to share this message with other health and social services that a person living with HIV may engage with, including rehabilitation, such as physiotherapy and occupational therapy, gynecology, dentistry, employment, and financial assistance services, to name a few. Some of the limitations that we've sort of experienced so far as we're moving forward: COVID-19. It has changed the way we engage with people and the way we share information, but it's kind of exciting to see the new ways that we can try and engage with the community in new and different ways that may be more, that have potential to be more engaging. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My information is here. You can also find me on the Realize website. And yeah, I look forward to hearing all the rest of the presentations. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Puja. Great job. Thank you.